Hi everybody, it's me Willow and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm here with another fun video for all of you guys to enjoy. Today we will be breaking down the newest episode of the Vampire Lestat, episode 3, Toronto. And oh boy, you can tell that I love this episode. I got very festive, I kind of dressed up, and oh boy, as a Toronto girly, this episode gave me everything that I wanted. And last week I was saying, oh, I want Magnus. And boy, did we get Magnus. Am I regretting that I say I wanted Magnus? Maybe just a little bit. But before we dive into the episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the post notification button so you don't miss out on any of my future content. I'm covering all of the Vampire Lestat. I'm also covering House of the Dragon Season 3. You should be seeing my spoiler review for this season premiere of Season 3 very soon. That should be up. And I'm covering all movies and awards predictions, festival coverage. I'm going to TIFF this year. It's going to be an exciting time. So hit the subscribe button and post notification button so you don't miss out on any of that future content. I'm also on all the major social media platforms at Willow D Steele. So give me some love and follow me on those platforms. Thank you guys so much for all the support. What are you guys thinking of the Vampire Lestat so far? I think this episode really solidifies the greatness of this season and just how much they are pacing for us to give us a lot of satisfaction and some conclusions. I feel like from season 1 and season 2, we've often been questioning what type of person is Lestat? Is he a good person? Is he a bad person? Where does he align in this evil and good? But I think this episode just really shows that, the traumas that we endure can make us into very hard people and make us formidable and not know how to completely navigate you know, having relationships and having people close in our lives. I think this episode really shows that well, specifically with the past relationship of Lestat and Claudia and understanding Lestat more and how he treated these people in his lives, specifically Claudia and Louis, Nikki, all these people, understanding the depth even more. And I'm going to continue to state that I do believe Lestat is a way more truthful narrator than Louis has been. I think with how Lestat is so honest with Daniel in multiple parts of his on-camera interview is way more, revealing and empathetic rather than what Louis, poses as in his, audio interview from season 1 and season 2. I really think the scene where Lestat breaks down and it was kind of all like a glamour effect. Like it's not actually being recorded on camera. Daniel thinks it is, but it's all being a glamour for Daniel. And that's really, Lestat being truthful and being honest about the abuse that he suffered through his transformation with Magnus and losing Nikki, the love of his life, and understanding his place in the world as a vampire when he didn't even have his maker to help him. So I do think it's a very, very distinct perspective in this episode, really bringing home the first two episodes here and showing us this is the perspective. This is Vampire Lestat. It is dark, it's gritty, it's blood ridden, it's drug fueled. Nothing 100% adds up, and you feel often deceitful and are we getting the truth? But in reality, you're just in the corner ready to start crying and wanting you to be picked up by your mom. So I really love this episode. It's a 5-star episode for me. The last two episodes have been teetering on a 4, 4.5. I have really enjoyed them. I love the writing. I think all the jokes are super quippy and even like better than season 1, season 2. Like I did obviously love the humor in the first 2 seasons, but Lestat's just like theatricality and just being so on the nose. Like I love his opening monologue of basically just saying that the Toronto skyline is disgusting. It's just filled with all these condominiums and then this 170-story toothpick which is the CN Tower. And then he's taking these like wedding photography photos like with the iPhone for these tourists, and then Gabriella like pops up in the background for like a photo bomb, and then they obviously attack and eat this couple. But I thought it was hilarious, this like introduction to Toronto and just kind of this aura of posture that Toronto often puts out, and how we feel very like satisfied and proud of our skyline. But in reality, is it even like comparable to most of the skylines in the world? Probably not. Is it forgettable? Maybe. And I feel like each town that Lestat's going to, there's this like wake of destruction that is coming for it. And we see at the very end of the episode the CN Tower like crumble. So I'm wondering what like that's alluding to. Like, I know in the first episode during the auction, it's mentioned that there's a lot of like catastrophic events that take place, and Lestat says like he's not responsible for any of it. So I'm excited to like further dive into that and see how maybe it connects to the great conversion that they keep mentioning. They specifically talk about it in this episode as well, and just how it seems that the numbers of the vampires are getting bigger and bigger. And with Bruce's little hideaway, the mansion filled with the vampires, it's obvious that he's been, you know, converting people into vampires, transforming them. And what does that mean for the vampires, for humans? The great conversion, like, is it really this huge threat against humanity? I think is this kind of threat that's being lingering in the background for the first 3 episodes, and even in season 1 and season 2, like wondering what does this mean for society, for our souls, for the future. It's very interesting, with everything else that's going on. We also have this lingering. Also, before I get too deep in the episode, I did want to show that I was able to pick up the Rolling Stone Vampire Lestat cover. I was not expecting to see this, but I went to Indigo and it was there, and I'm so happy that I was able to pick it up. Like, look how cool it is. And then we get like an interview with Lestat. It's literally so epic. I'm so happy I was able to pick this up. Literally such an amazing memorabilia piece. I will hold this and cherish it for the rest of my life. I'll put this in the background. But overall, I thought this episode dealt with a lot of pain and trauma, and Sam Reed is just a phenomenal actor and has really given his all in these 3 seasons. But I think in this episode particularly, he's on a next level, like definitely Emmy worthy. And I definitely think Jacob Anderson has been Emmy worthy before in the past season. And I know this has definitely been, a topic of conversation with season 3 and how it's been marketed much more, and talking about how it's a white lead rather than a black lead, and what does that mean for Emmys, and how this show has often been snubbed. It's never really been recognized on an awards level, even though it's very well written and the acting is phenomenal, and I love the costumes, and everything is really to T. Like, everything's just like super well thought out. And I would say the emotion, the gravitas in this episode, particularly with everything that we are seeing, this like kind of facade that Lestat is originally giving us in the interview about his transformation with Magnus, and how he was this amazing star in the theater, and he had this biggest fan, which was Magnus, who would come and see him at the theater every single night. And then he was just so obsessed with him that he took him home with him and made him into a vampire, and kind of giving us this Taylor Swift music video with I'm Your Biggest Fan playing in the background, and seeing this like idealized version of Lestat's kidnapping and transformation. And then later in the episode, when Louis has tracked down Bruce and is basically really slowly torturing Bruce, and brings out the ripped out pieces of Claudia's diary, the pieces that he never wanted Daniel or like the light of day to see. And he's memorized these words that Claudia has written so many years ago, so many decades ago, and he recites them to Bruce as he's like completely disabled. He has his heart and his spine, his legs are broken, everything has been taken out of him, and he's incapacitated. And just reading the brutal torture that Claudia went through at the hands of Bruce, while being juxtaposed between the actual violent nature of Lestat's kidnapping, being brutally taken out of his bed next to Nikki, and being locked away in this tower, seeing all these dead bodies that look exactly like him. And at this point, he's so far away from religion, but the only thing he can think about is praying to the gods, any god that will listen, in order to hope that they will save him from this monstrosity that he's seeing in front of him, and being slowly assaulted for what seems like weeks on end, and like sexually, and then also, having the blood being drinking by him, and just being so scared and frightened and not knowing what's going on, only to have, his choice of becoming a vampire completely taken away from him. He's never, pleading or asking for being turned into a vampire, which is often, given the consent. And you know, Louis, at the end of the day, did agree to be a vampire, and kind of like talking about like Claudia and how she never really gave her consent. She was such a young child. You shouldn't really turn a young child. What's going to do that to their mind? Like, what are you doing to the mind of a person who doesn't want to become a vampire, forcibly holding yourself over top, slitting your neck, letting the blood drip into his mouth? He's choking, spitting it up, doesn't know what to do. He's being transformed. And then we don't get to see it in the episode, but knowing that then Magnus just throws himself into the flames, leaving Lestat there to know nothing about who he is, what creature he's been turned into, his powers, how to control himself, how to hunt, nothing. He's completely left, so vulnerable, abused, all this stuff. And just to hear it contrast against the words of Claudia and her assault, it is so heartbreaking, but it's like brilliant. Like, what television? Like, I really do think this is so strong and so compelling, and really bringing us full circle, and seeing Lestat, freaking out in the car after being, really reminded of the pain during the interview with Daniel, being vulnerable with Daniel, saying, "Don't say I never gave you anything." And then he's hallucinating Nikki, he's hallucinating Magnus, he's praying in the car again, and the only relief he gets is if he gives himself over to something violent of crashing his car. Like, it's very, very brutal. Like, it's obvious, seeing him, abusing drugs and alcohol, like this kind of clicks as well. Like, is he doing this to try and, forget about the pain that he's endured, and the fact that he's a vampire? He has to hold that transformation with him every single moment of his life of being a vampire. Like, that is really, really brutal, and honestly unimaginable, that trauma that you have to suffer day in, day out. And then having the whole Nikki trauma of Nikki basically losing his mind after being taken by Armand in the coven, and Lestat not wanting to change him, but Nikki saying, "You don't love me enough to give me this power. You gave it to Gabriella, but you won't give it to me." And then ultimately having to go through with changing Nikki, and seeing him change for the worse. Like, this isn't for the betterment of his mind, it's just going to make him deteriorate even faster. And then having the reveal that Lestat never ended up killing Nikki at his own hands. He couldn't go through with it. He was so in love with him, and he believes he thinks it's true that it was his, it wasn't his great love, but it was his first love. But you're like, I'm not sure about that. I think you were really indebted to Nikki and felt a lot of joy in his presence, and he gave you music, which is something that you are just so indebted to him to this day. Like, being a rock star, taking this music, finding the joy and the peace and the flow, with his band, finding that in this music in Detroit, going to um Toronto and all the places in between, and like really finding their groove, and him playing the violin and really paying homage to Nikki in certain ways, and not being able to go through and kill him and having to have Armand do it in the end. And I feel like that even kind of puts more of this distance between Armand and Louis, and just not having any, like, just having so much bitterness between Armand and Lestat, and understanding that, maybe it wasn't just because of Louis and the play, but it's really started from Nikki. It's like Armand took Nikki in the first place, when Lestat refused to join the coven. And then when he joined the coven and saved Nikki, he couldn't save Nikki's mind, and Armand had to take him out. Like, it's really very painful. And then seeing Gabriella, she survives her transformation and she has no sympathy towards Nikki. She never wanted him changed in the first place. He's a complete threat to her. If he's going to be with Lestat for eternity, then what's Gabriella at that point? And even seeing Gabriella in present day, like, really, like, just playing in Lestat's face during the interview, going off to fuck Gerard and just making so much obscene noise, and coming back in with the most, like, she's just literally the biggest flippin' bitch on this show, and she's really making it hard for me to like her, even if she is this, like, woman. I understand what they're doing with her, how she had no power in her mortal life, and she's able to take all the power in her vampiric life. But just seeing the abuse that she continues to throw at Lestat after all these years, really just trying to reel him in and play on the fact that he, deep down, I think, knows and feels weird about his relationship with his mother, the sexual relationship that they have, and then her playing that in his face by going to go fuck the body double right in the middle of the interview, and him slipping up and bringing up his mother, and Daniel almost catching that, him having to play off, oh, she's just in my heart, she died, but in reality she is Sophia, just sitting right there, really just like manipulating him, gaslighting him. I am proud that Lestat, kind of lays the law at the end of the episode and tells her to fuck off, and then he drives away. But I'm really worried that she's going to continue to try and meddle her way into Lestat's life and continue to isolate him and ruin the relationships that he has around with him, like with his band and Daniel and Louis. I'm really worried, really worried for Lestat, because I can't stand Gabriella, and just seeing the pain that he suffered at the hands of Gabriella sexually, during his mortal life, and the abuse that he suffered at the hands of his father and his brothers, and then seeing the suffering and the abuse that he suffered at the hands of Magnus, and then the transformation being super traumatic, not freeing at all, like almost like as it's a cage, like not knowing anything about your powers, hunting, anything to keep you going. And Lestat, like, you completely understand Lestat and his actions in season one and season two, specifically when it's being put through Louis's eyes, and how Louis doesn't even understand half of the trauma that Lestat has gone through. Like, he only knows bits and pieces that Lestat has allowed him to know. It just, like, really gives you so much more insight and understanding this series and these characters way better. I thought this was a super brutal episode to watch, but I think it's so necessary to really understand these characters. And I think everything that we got to see with Louis as well was fantastic, in him going on the Talamascus journey to take out Bruce and his gang of vampires, and how I guess they're trafficking drugs and really, like, playing into the great conversion and transforming a lot of mortals into becoming vampires in order to continue this drug trafficking. And we get the appearance of baby Jenks come back, and she just married Bruce, so that was her husband that she mentioned that she was marrying next week after, having sex with Dee and Lestat in the first episode, and how she was also like this like siren call in the first episode as well, giving this warning to Lestat of everything that's going to go down. And her coming back, I'm just like, oh, this is, it's not a coincidence. This is something that you need to take note of. The fact that baby Jenks is back and Louis, takes his revenge out on Bruce. She comes and finds him completely burned, has the wedding ring. Obviously, she's going to come for her revenge. And the whole like poster shrine of Lestat as well. Like, I'm just wondering, how her little siren call warning in the first episode is going to bring us with her again, in the second half of the season. We only have 4 episodes left. I feel like there's so much we have to go through, and I'm just so excited to see what happens with baby Jenks, Lestat, Louis. I feel like they're all going to come back together with this revenge, and I just wonder who's going to be at the demise. I have a feeling it's going to be Lestat or Daniel. They keep threatening my two favorite characters, and I don't like it. Another notable plot point is last week we heard Louis admit that he saw Claudia walking into a diner to go to a shift, and he acknowledges, oh, it's not actually her. And some people have been thinking, oh, is it like haunting like what Lestat was doing in season 2, and like what Nikki is doing to Lestat right now, or what Magnus is doing to Lestat right now? Is the Claudia ghost out there haunting Louis? This regret that he has, not being able to save her, not being able to be the brother father that she deserved. And we have this comeback in this episode at the end, and after Louis goes and kills Bruce and all of his vampire gang, he goes back to that diner and he is waited on by Regina, who's played by Delaney, aka our Claudia. So I'm worried about this because I have a feeling poor Regina is gonna meet her demise by the end as well. Like, I'm just wondering what's going on. Like, I do feel like Louis like wants to tell her, like, I did it. I was able to get the revenge. I was able to take out Bruce, and he has nobody to really dive into that with. Like the trauma, that connection, just the bondedness that he had with Claudia. Like, he doesn't have that with anybody anymore, no matter how hard he tries. But I do think it's going to be interesting to have Delaney come back. I was wondering if they would try and tie her in somehow with like flashbacks or a haunting. Like, I wondered what they were going to do with her. So to see her back in this kind of mortal role as Regina, this diner waitress, now having this relationship with Louis, I'm really excited for these last 4 episodes just to see the relationship grow, and whether it's going to be, in the end for good, to help Louis like overcome his grief and his regret of not being able to save Claudia, or if it's going to be for the worse and he's going to dive deeper and deeper into this paranoia and end up taking out poor Regina in the end. So that's definitely something weighing on me. I feel like there's so many questions with this season. Like, are they going to continue this crazy story with Gabriella and Lestat? Like, what are they trying to dive in with that? Are they trying to put an end to it? Like, I feel like it's just such a big plot point. Like, they can't really just like get rid of it in the first half of the season. Like, it really does have to be dived into and navigated for the rest of the season. But I wanted Louis and Lestat to get back together so badly, and it just feels like we are so far away from that even happening. Like, I really do think Lestat needs to do so much healing on himself, and same with Louis. Like, Louis is so lost. Like, everybody's hallucinating like the worst parts of their lives, like, what's going on? We just need some, maybe like sleep. I feel like all these people are sleep deprived and they're all doing drugs and cutting other vampires' heads off with machetes. Like that whole scene was epic. Honestly, loved that like super wide oneer of Louis just going through the whole house, taking out all those vampires with the machete, chopping their heads off. Like so cool. We also learned from Dr. Farid that cutting off a vampire's head doesn't ultimately kill them. They could like survive or sustain themselves for still quite a few hours possibly. So I do think that that was interesting, and like they did show us with the machete later in the episode, but I'm wondering if that will come back somehow as well as like a Chekhov's gun type situation with machete cutting off a vampire's head, something like that. But yeah, overall, I thought this was a great episode. Definitely a 5 out of 5 stars for me. You should check out my serialized review. I review all my TV shows on Serialized and all my movies on Letterboxd at Willow D Steele. So make sure you give me a follow on those platforms. I'm also on TikTok and Instagram and the Awards Expert app as well. So you can give me a follow all at Willow D Steele on those platforms. I'm so grateful for all of your support. And while you're at it, make sure you hit the subscribe button, the post notification button, so you don't miss out on any of my future content. I cover pop culture, festival, awards predictions, all that fun goodness. I'm so excited to dive even deeper into the Vampire Lestat as we get into episode 4, 5, 6, and 7 to finish up this season. I just thought this episode was so phenomenal from left, right, and center. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode down below. This conversation grow with my cinema loving community. So thank you guys so much for all of your support. And I'm so excited to see, what happens next week. I think it's going to be even crazier than this week. So yeah, thank you guys so much for all your support. Until my next video, keep getting lost in cinema. Bye.